Here at Elon Law School, we believe lawyers are particularly well equipped to be good decision makers and good leaders. They are trained, first of all, in the skills of precise analysis, issue recognition, and dispassionate logical thinking. Lawyers are trained to marshal material facts, separating wheat from chaff. And moreover, the practice of law is a special privilege granted by the people to us in the profession. It is not a right. It is a special privilege. In return for this privilege, and because of their special skills, lawyers, we believe, have a special obligation to look beyond their professional lives to the larger community and be leaders in that community. Consequently, the law school here not only teaches the skills lawyers need to practice their profession, it also has special programs designed to help those students who are interested develop the skills needed to be good lawyer leaders. Whenever I consider these ideas about lawyer leaders, I think almost immediately of the Guilford County public school system. It's one of the best anywhere. Recently, it received a $30 million Race to the Top grant from the U.S. Department of Education to improve student learning in its 24 middle schools. There were over 372 applications for these grants. Only one other school system in North Carolina got one. Our school superintendent is Maurice Mo Green, an African-American lawyer who left a large firm practice to go into school administration. The chairman of our school board is Alan Duncan, who was part of the defense team that successfully defended former Senator John Edwards. Alan is also the president-elect of the North Carolina Bar Association. So we have two lawyers who lead our school system and who have brought it to national prominence. Legal training even provides lawyers with some understanding of the substantive content of a good decision. We study in law school hundreds of decisions made by our courts, and we examine them for their relative worth. What marks a good legal decision? One of the best definitions I've run across was suggested by Columbia Law School professor Harry Jones. Professor Jones wrote, and I quote, "Law is not a form of art for art's sake. Its ends in view are social, nothing more and nothing less than the establishment of a social environment in which the quality of human life can be spirited, improving, and unimpaired." In which the quality of human life can be spirited, improving, and unimpaired. Law serves these ends of view, he said, when its decision makers, legislators, judges, lawyers, reach their judgments by way of a disinterested and informed evaluation of the probable consequences of their action on the prevailing quality of human life in society. Good decisions, then, at whatever level, are those that promote a quality of life that is spirited, improving, and unimpaired. A leader's decisions should promote such a quality of life not only for the leader, but also for those whom he or she would lead. Robert Greenleaf, an executive for many years at AT&T, wrote famously about servant leadership. He argued that leaders should think of themselves first as servants, empowering those whom they would lead, rather than exercising power over them. His idea was to involve those one is leading in decision-making. His goal was to enhance the personal growth of people while improving the caring and quality of our many institutions. February is Black History Month, and of course the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. epitomized the sort of leader Professor Jones and Robert Greenleaf had in mind. Remember his letters from the Birmingham jail? Remember his "I Have a Dream" speech? The essence of his eloquence and all his work was to make the quality of life spirited, improving, and unimpaired, and to empower those he would lead to make this happen. Here are some other examples. The first two involve events that happened right here in Greensboro and that changed the history of our country. About 5 miles west of here, from where we sit today, on March the 15th, 1781, the Revolutionary forces under General Nathaniel Greene met the British Army commanded by General Charles Cornwallis in the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. General Greene's tactics and strategy were so well planned and executed that when the fighting was over, the British held the field, but their losses were so great that the battle marked the beginning of the end of the Revolutionary War, and Cornwallis surrendered 7 months later at Yorktown. Greensboro is named for General Greene. His decisions and his leadership helped ensure the success of America's Revolution and the creation of a new country where life could be more spirited, improving, and unimpaired than it had been when we were colonies of Great Britain. The second event occurred about 2 blocks from here on South Elm Street. The International Civil Rights Center Museum occupies what used to be a Woolworth store. On February 1, 1960, 4 African American students from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University in Greensboro sat at Woolworth's all-white lunch counter, where they were refused service and were arrested. Thus began the sit-in movement for civil rights. By the end of March 1960, the movement had spread to more than 55 cities in 13 states. By the end of July, Woolworths had desegregated. By August 1961, more than 70,000 persons had participated in sit-ins and inspired kneel-ins at segregated churches, sleep-ins at motel lobbies, swim-ins at segregated pools, wade-ins at segregated beaches, read-ins at segregated libraries, play-ins at segregated parks, and watch-ins at segregated movies. The 4 students, all freshmen, were Ezell Blair, Joseph McNeil, Franklin McCain, and David Richmond. Because of their leadership, our country, thank God, would never be the same. Their leadership empowered thousands and substantially improved the quality of life, not only for African Americans, but also for every American. Sometimes leadership decisions are simple acts with profound consequences. The story is told of General Robert E. Lee, who shortly after the end of the Civil War was attending church at St. Paul's in Richmond. The first person to come forward to the rail to receive communion was a well-dressed black man. No one else came forward. The man knelt alone in silence. Then General Lee came forward and knelt beside the black man. The rest of the church then came forward. Rosa Parks, a 42-year-old African-American seamstress in Montgomery, Alabama, decided in 1955 not to give up her seat in the white section of the bus when ordered to do so by the bus driver. Her arrest was followed by the 381-day Montgomery bus boycott. These decisions and leadership of General Lee and Rosa Parks empowered others and improved our quality of life. Some life-enhancing leadership decisions arise from extraordinary performance of our regular duties. In 1920, in Goldsboro, North Carolina, a black man was accused of raping and murdering a white woman. After his trial was scheduled, an armed and dangerous lynch mob formed around the courthouse. Regular law enforcement personnel were overwhelmed and outnumbered. The trial judge, William Devin, who later became Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, was determined that the trial proceed and that it be fair. He sent word out to the citizenry of the town asking for help. The official report of the case, 181 NC 522, reads, 50 citizens were called upon and sworn in as special officers of the court. This number included every member of the Goldsboro Bar, except those engaged in the trial of the case. The lynch mob attacked, but the special officers, including the lawyers, deputized by the court, stood their ground and repulsed the mob. The official report states, quote, there were no casualties among the defenders, and no member of the mob set foot within the courthouse. End of quote. Judge Devin's decision and leadership empowered others and improved the quality of justice in our courts. Denise Keene, Executive Vice President and General Counsel for the Altria Group, leads the company's law department. She is a member of the American Bar Association and serves on its Commission on Women in the profession. She also serves on the board of the Virginia Opera. At a recent program in Chicago on women's leadership in the law, Keene spoke of her attention to diversity in the workplace as one of the keys to her success. She said, quote, I want the perspective from people who look at issues differently than the norm and give me a contrarian perspective to what might be otherwise an instinctive approach to a problem. This is a leadership decision that both empowers and enhances the quality of life of those whom she seeks to lead. Dozens of lawyers provided extraordinary international leadership as a part of the American Bar Association's Central and Eastern European Law Initiative, known as CELI. CELI's purpose was to send American lawyers to the countries of Eastern Europe to assist them as they evolved from total domination under the Soviet Union to independent constitutional democracies. One of those lawyers was McNeil Smith from Greensboro. then a partner in the firm that is now Smith Moore Leatherwood. Mr. Smith spent a year in Estonia helping its leaders to organize its government and write its constitution. It was my privilege to practice law with McNeil Smith. He was constantly making decisions and exercising leadership that enhanced the quality of not only his own life, but also the lives of thousands of others. He was a world federalist, a member of the North Carolina General Assembly, chair of the North Carolina State Advisory Committee to the United States Commission on Civil Rights, chair of the American Bar Association's Individual Rights Section, and he founded the North Carolina Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. He was famous for quoting familiar sayings and famous writers. One of his favorites was, quote, "You can have the strength of 10 if your heart is pure," recalling a line from Tennyson's Sir Galahad. Every time Mac and I had a tough case, he would say, "Jim, you can have the strength of 10 if your heart is pure." And I often wondered whether my heart was pure enough. I wish I could say to all you lawyers soon to be that the world awaits you. I'm not sure that it does. I'm not unaware of the difficulties that you will face in what is presently a very tough job market for lawyers. But I do believe this: the world does need you, whether it knows it or not. And you will find your niche. You will find your opportunities. My generation has done its best and its worst. Change is needed. Problems abound. Global warming, religious intolerance, political and ideological polarization, crumbling infrastructures, the income gap, the jobless, the poor, the aging, and the sick. What to do? All I can say is that you will be better equipped than most by your legal training and the privilege of a law license to tackle these problems at all levels: global, national, state, city, church, civic clubs, family, and friends. You can do it if you have the will and can get over yourself. As in the few examples I have cited, I urge you to become tomorrow's leaders whose decisions will create a social environment in which the quality of life can be spirited, improving, and unimpaired, and that will empower and enhance the personal growth of those whom you would lead. If you do, the world we live in, our countries, towns, and neighborhoods will be better than when you found them. Indeed, they will be better than they have ever been.